Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Energy Speaks Back, powered by B2B Energy. My name is Paul Webb, and I'm the founder of B2B Energy, and I'm your host. And weekly, I present to you energy experts from around the world. Welcome to episode 144. Our purpose, as always, is to provide a good understanding of energy management knowledge from around the world, which is available today for us to deliver savings that impact on our planet. Welcome, energy enthusiasts, to another enlightening episode of Energy Speaks Back. Today, we are joined by a very special guest from North London, and someone I have had the pleasure of working alongside within the Energy Conscious team, and also Esther. He's a measurement and verification expert who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table of energy management. Not only does he implement measurement and verification strategies, but he provides both training and leadership within the industry. So without any further ado, let's dive into the conversation with Nick Keegan. Good afternoon, Nick. How are you today?
I'm very well. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me on to talk. Yeah, no, it's great to see Paul, and as I say, you look like you're on top of the world.
I feel on
Yeah,
top of the world. I'm
yeah,
floating around.
yeah,
It's been quite funny because we have kept missing each other.
yeah,
We've tried to arrange this. I'd actually go back to the first conference for the ENCO when I said to
yeah,
you, "Oh, I'd love to interview you," and you said, "Yeah," and then we sort of
yeah.
done the dates, and yeah, we've been going around the houses a little bit, haven't we, with this one?
Yeah, it's almost entirely my fault, I think, because well, entirely my fault. We've got two young daughters, and I haven't been getting a lot of sleep in the last year, and
Ah,
and yeah, work's been busy and so forth. And I think, yeah, as I said, the last one I had to cancel because yeah, my jazz big band was playing a gig that week, and it was our last rehearsal. So things are busy, but I'm so glad that we've found the
me
chance
too.
to do it now. So yeah.
And can I sense some
Yeah.
sunshine in the back of that window there?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, no, it's nicer today actually. Yeah,
Yes, it has been, isn't it?
yeah. So yeah, no, I'm just sitting in our office in Holborn at the moment,
Right.
yeah, this is where I come for my peace. Yeah, working at home doesn't work at the moment. There's
No,
too
that looks
much
very
going on.
deceiving. You said Holborn. You
Yeah.
don't get that many trees in Holborn, do you?
No, well, we're yeah, I guess we're in a serviced office, and we're sort of looking onto people's back gardens here, so
Oh,
it is
very
quite
nice.
nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's a nice place to be actually. We're right over the way from the Gray's Inn as well, where all the
Right.
barristers are, and they let you walk around their gardens and have lunch in there.
Oh,
You're
very nice.
closed out at 2 o'clock, but
Brilliant.
no, it's lovely.
And where'd you come from originally? How far have you traveled in to the
Well,
office?
we live in King's Cross, so very close.
Wow.
About I cycle into work and barely get on the bike, but
What an amazing
um,
life.
yeah. But I originally come from well, I was born in London, but my parents grew me up free range in Kent near Ashford. But yeah, moved back to London. Been living here now for 20 years since I was at university myself. So.
So I'm in Essex at the moment, and if
Mm.
you was to be able to throw a stone to where Ashford, Kent is, it's
Yeah.
probably about 8 or 9 miles.
Oh,
But
really?
I have to go all the way down to
Yeah.
the Dartford Tunnel, go across, and it's about
Yeah.
65 miles. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Actually, my dad's from Essex. Well, border of Essex, actually. He's from Upminster
Right.
originally. So,
Brilliant.
do you call that Essex or is that still
Yeah,
London? Yeah.
yeah, I would say it's
Right.
just
Yeah.
you're right in what you're saying, borderline. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So Nick, we have met at
Mhm.
a couple of conferences, and we
Yeah.
share some same passions regarding the ENCO
Yeah.
element, and
Yeah.
obviously we
Certainly.
talk about measurement and verification, which
Hmm.
we touched on just now. So I've known you for a couple of years, and we've had a lot of conversation. But for benefit of our audience, can you give us some background? Tell us about your origin story.
Yeah. Well, I've watched a couple of your podcasts now, and it's a really interesting question, actually. What's your origin story? It really got me thinking, because I thought, well, why do I care about all of this?
Mm.
And it sort of took a bit of soul searching, and the things I've touched on, so I grew up in a little village called Y, so it's between Ashford and Canterbury, and I guess one of Y's claim to fame is that it had this thing called Y Cycle back in the late 80s, early 90s, which was the UK's first ever doorstop recycling scheme.
Right.
A doorstep recycling scheme, sorry. And so yeah, I think from an early age, I sort of had this like inbuilt, uh, environmental, thing going on around us, and that sort of avoiding waste idea. And also, my mum, she was a cycling campaigner, and
Right.
so she was involved in planning some of the routes for the National Cycle Network. So actually, one between Ashford and Canterbury called Route 18.
Hmm.
And if you ever find yourself or any of your listeners ever find themselves cycling down there, you can stop at a lovely place called Cather's Seat, which is in her memory.
Oh,
And so yeah, no, I think all of that, it sort of had instilled in me this sort of idea that it's why would we waste stuff? Why would and why would we have sort of unnecessary resource use when we can we can do things better,
yeah.
and so yeah, I was also thinking about in that sort of early life, I was thinking back to a time when I was probably maybe 13 or 14, and I think I bought my whole family compact fluorescent light bulbs because that was the thing at the time.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like, this is the gift that keeps on giving. It saves you energy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I got some raised eyebrows at the time, but yeah, it's been, but I don't know how it happened, but I don't think I'm sort of, I didn't come with that sort of vibe of, about saving the Antarctic or the Arctic. It was all about, sort of waste reduction. I could never get my head around why people would waste energy, resources, and so forth. So it sort of that sort of sowed that seed in early life. But yeah, I mean, I sort of went on, and I'm the son of two architects, so I guess initially I was thinking of going into the sort of design industry, specifically so industrial design.
Hmm.
Um, but I sort of found that I was quite good at sort of maths and physics, and it sort of interested me, intrigued me, certainly the practical side of it. And so I thought I'd take a different route to where I was going to have a bit of maybe a USP, unique selling point in things. So yeah, I chose to study physics at Imperial College in London. Um, and I guess when I got there, I was sort of exposed to some really exciting renewable energy spin-offs that were
Right.
going on there at the time.
Hmm.
I think I was already, I remember doing like solar sort of experiments at school, and I already had that sort of thing in my head. But yeah, there was a couple of really exciting things. So one called Hydro Venturi, which was a sort of run-of-river hydro technology, which basically sucks air in and drives a fan turbine. And so I did a bit of uh, uh, yeah, like a short project on that, and another thing called Quantasol as well, which was how solar cells that are very high efficiency,
Hmm.
basically. Um, so I guess through that my trajectory kind of changed a little bit, and I ended up thinking, oh, I don't want to do this industrial design thing anymore. I want to be in the renewable sector. I want to be in the energy sector. It looks really exciting. So actually, I chose to do my master's in organic solar cells. So I actually went out to Freiburg in Germany, which is kind of the solar mecca of Europe, solar research mecca, a place called the Fraunhofer Institute there. And I spent a year researching solar cells, building them and analyzing them, and really got into it. But I guess when I got back and I eventually sort of graduated in 2007, that is now. So how long is that ago? 17 years or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I looked around for stuff in the solar PV industry, but it was a bit before things took off in
Mm,
solar.
yeah,
Before,
in front
yeah.
of the curve, basically, or that. Yeah,
So I really struggled to find anything to start with, even with a couple of contacts. But luckily, one of my yeah, I knew a few friends who were into energy and sustainability, and actually a friend that I knew through playing music in orchestras, a chap called Alex Rathmell, who's quite well known in the industry. He sort of suggested he'd start working for this company called Power Perfector, voltage optimization company, and he said, "Well, why don't you come over and do some energy efficiency stuff?" So I sort of applied there and started my career, yeah, with Power Perfector back in the day,
yeah,
2007, and yeah, it was a really exciting place to work to start with because their sort of recruitment policy was to hire loads of young, enthusiastic sustainability, people that cared about the environment.
yeah.
And
Because
so,
they had their own bureau, didn't they? They had like
um,
an energy bureau, but they used to monitor the systems and work out the return on investments and things like that, didn't they?
well, I'll come on to that a bit. I mean,
Right.
certainly during my time there wasn't an energy bureau as such, but they did focus on measuring the outcomes
Yeah.
of the projects. And yeah, I guess because that's kind of the genesis of
Yes.
my company,
Sorry,
EEVS, if you
I
will.
probably
Yeah.
tried to jump a couple of
No,
years there for you.
no, no, no. It's yeah, it's an interesting story actually, but yeah, I guess it's interesting when I talk to people now about voltage optimization. It is a bit Marmite, and
Mm,
I think perhaps it had a bit of the industry as a whole had a bit of a reputation for maybe overselling at the
yeah.
time and just sort
Yeah.
of saying, oh, just chuck it in anywhere and you'll get savings, which
Yeah.
as we know is probably not the case. You need to do some really detailed analysis of
Exactly. Yeah.
of 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 how to apply it in the right ways, and it is really hard to predict. If you want to, get it right, you have to do a very detailed survey of all the equipment you've got
Yeah.
on site, and
Yeah.
even then, you're probably still going to be putting your finger in the air a little bit.
Exactly. I had a
And s
meeting last
Yeah,
week actually, and
yeah,
we was talking about voltage optimization,
mm,
and I described it as being a black art
yeah,
because we don't know exactly what equipment's going to be impacted by it. You
yeah,
know, we know that inductance is a big area like pumps and
mm,
fans, yes. But LEDs nowadays, or the original
yeah,
lighting, but LEDs no, because they should have their onboard voltage optimization.
yeah,
So for me, it's a black art, and
yeah,
it always worries me. I always check the voltage when I'm on sites doing energy
yeah,
surveys because I think that there is opportunities there.
yeah. No, I'd agree with you. It's very difficult to predict, and I think that's what really excited me at the time because while I was on the sort of account management side of Power Perfector, Alex, who I'd mentioned before, was developing the sort of measurement side of Power Perfector, and how do we measure the outcomes of these projects, and also he brought along actually I sort of helped to recruit another one of our friends from Imperial, Hilary Woods, who we'd both played in orchestras together as well. And they started creating this. How do we measure this properly? Probably because um, as I say, it's hard to predict, and so for people to sort of really trust in it, you need to be able to measure it, and so they were looking at how do we measure this properly, and how could we take a bit of that sort of uncertainty out by guaranteeing the outcomes. So sort of
Mm,
saying, well, okay, well, we're going to predict you a saving, but we're going to measure it, and if we fall short, we'll repay the difference. To sort of
yeah,
take that sting out of the idea that you might not make the savings, or it might be one way or the other. So, I mean, they looked to the US energy performance contracting industry, so probably a lot more developed than ours at the time because
Yeah.
they'd had sort of an energy crisis in the 90s, and they found this thing called the IPMVP, or International Performance Measurement and Verification Protocol. Um, and they started to introduce that into the UK. So I think both Hilary and Alex were some of the first qualified M&V professionals
Right.
in the UK, and started introducing those standards in, yeah, maybe 2009, I think it was. Um, but yeah, on why it really excited me is because, I started applying this on the sort of other side, because, I was very keen on making sure that, we delivered a good job. And, I always come back to this case study. I was working with the University of Greenwich, and, we did all of our surveys. We tried our hardest to predict the right saving. I think I predicted something in the region of sort of 7 or 8%.
Hmm.
Um, and we didn't get it. We did the measurement. We got maybe 5 or 6%
Right.
across um, the, the sites we were looking at. And but what happened then was, well, we said, look, well, we haven't made it, so we'll give you the difference back. And rather than, just saying, well, okay, that's fine, we won't do any more of this. It sort of built the trust to invest more. So the client at the time said, well, look, okay, we're not going to make 7 or 8 out of this. We're going to make 5 or 6, and,
Yeah.
let's do some more surveys. We've learned something from this.
Yeah.
So it really built that sort of in something which, as you say, is maybe a bit of a dark art. There are lots of energy saving things. And if we take like Enco as an example, behavior change is one of those things that is very hard to predict what you'll achieve.
Yeah.
And so how do you build trust in the outcomes of those sort of things? You need to measure it. And once you measure it, and if you measure it properly, people trust in the outcomes, and they say, well, okay, now I trust in it. We can do some more.
Yeah.
And so that was really exciting to me. I was like, well, this is one of those missing pieces in the jigsaw puzzle. If why aren't people doing so much energy efficiency? It's because they don't trust the outcomes.
Mm.
And I think the second thing it did is it gave us some feedback to be able to improve our predictions. So as a services supplier,
Yeah.
it lowers your risk because you're not having unhappy clients, you're not paying out on guarantees, and it also lowers risk for the customers as well. And at the same time, it builds that credibility of the service and technology supplier as well. So it really excited me, that story. And I had to wait a little while, but eventually, time passed, and EEVS span out as an independent business in 2011. Um, Although it still had some shareholding links to Power Perfector, so I think there was perhaps a couple of accusations that it wasn't
Yeah.
entirely independent,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially in that context. But then it started offering these independent M&V services to more widely, and a sort of common application of that was in
So my
the energy.
perceptions of
Yeah,
the bureau was
yeah,
in fact you guys, yeah, the Eves
yeah.
or Eve,
Yes, yeah. So
right?
there was a reporting system.
Yeah.
So back at that time, every single Power Perfector project, I think, it had an M&V plan, well,
Yeah.
so a light version of an M&V plan, and a savings report done. So yeah, everyone got that. Um, but and Eve still carried on doing that as it
Right. Yeah.
was span out. But yeah, then they started having some more wider applications, and I think the main one being the sort of start of the public sector energy performance contracting industry here. So there's a thing originally called BEEP, and then called Refit, which was the GLA, London Authority, Greater London Authority's energy performance contracting scheme for local authorities and NHS trusts and so forth. Um, but yeah, so I mean that happened, and I had to wait a little bit of time. But so Hilary and Alex finally asked me to join EEVS in 2014, and I jumped at the chance. I was like,
Yeah.
this is my dream job. So Yeah, and at that time, they wanted me to come in and do business development and sort of getting more business in, which was definitely an interest. But I guess with my technical background, I really wanted to get back on the tools. I wanted to be a consultant. I wanted to know about how to do this
Yeah.
and become qualified. So eventually, I qualified as an MMV professional in 2016. Um, and I went on then to become a Evo trainer as well, so a level two trainer. So Evo are the people that own the IPMVP and manage the training. So we sort of packaged that into one of our sort of practical MOV courses over 2 days. So I started delivering that, and then I guess more recently, actually, I've qualified as uh, and it's a new qualification, the performance measurement and verification expert. So
Oh, wow.
this is yeah, it's a new qualification which is sort of aimed at regularly practicing M&V professionals to sort of distinguish people that are doing it day in, day out. And the course is a lot more involved, and you have to give in examples of your M&V work every 3 years to renew your qualification. So I think it's going to be a really exciting development actually
Yeah.
in the
And is
industry.
this agnostic to the technologies? Could it be
Mm,
anything?
yeah.
And any
So
utility, gas, electric, water, oil?
yeah. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, the IPMVP framework is very flexible. So it's not prescriptive. That's why you have to get some qualifications to become a professional, because
Yeah.
you need to know how to apply it in certain situations. But it gives you the sort of toolbox to be able to apply um, a process to any project that you've got in front of you, be
Mm.
it gas, water, a small project, a big project. But yeah, it's really important that you understand how it works. And I guess the other reason that our business exists is because you need a certain amount of quality control, and that comes from having a third party review or independent review.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, I
so
picked up some books on this subject and
yeah.
I struggled with it because
Mm,
it's uh, it's just you said physics earlier. It is a physics type approach, isn't it? It's
yeah.
not just the basic. This is the kilowatt hour before, and this is the kilowatt hour now. It goes into a bit more in depth proof regarding the savings, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I think the real challenge with energy efficiency or energy savings and carbon savings is that you're having to measure something that you can't measure directly. You can't just put a meter on energy efficiency. You have to do some estimation. So basically, you are making an estimate of what you would have used, your sort of business as usual,
Yeah,
if you didn't do your project. And then comparing that to what you actually used having done your project. So you're making an estimate of what you would have used, and that's where the sort of the maths, the uncertainty comes into it, and the sort of the art comes into it, if you
yeah,
will. And I guess that's the bit where it becomes quite conceptually challenging, because I think people's sort of natural thing is to just compare their bills before and after.
yeah,
And the challenge you get with just comparing your bills before and after is, you know, firstly, well, what happens if your energy rates change? That's a very
yeah,
easy
yeah.
one. But I mean the other thing is, are you comparing apples with apples?
Mm,
So if it was, say, a colder year, you might expect, certainly on gas,
yeah,
to use more gas, even if you have made some savings.
yeah,
And I think getting that sort of concept of like avoided energy being or avoided cost
yeah,
being the savings is one that takes a bit of time to get your head around, and that's and I know that even our clients, energy managers and so forth, they get it, but they've then got to sell that to their finance directors, who are
yeah.
coming back and saying, well, I gave you this money to save some money,
Mm.
and I haven't saved any money.
They didn't get it from day one, did they? This is the
Yeah,
interesting concept that
yeah,
so I've done some. I've done implemented some projects in 2012, and it was a burner management unit, and we
Yeah.
put it on the burners um, for a whole group of hotel for this hotel, and we did it over February.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what happened. It was the coldest February in 20 years or something. And
Yeah.
when the client gets his bill here and he said, "Hold on a minute, my bill's gone up. You told me I was going to make savings here."
Yeah.
So then that is when we didn't go into that project with the measurement and verification thoughts. We
Mm.
then had to go back and retrofit and
Mm.
create that side of it. And even then, the client said, "Oh, don't give me that. I'm not really interested in, you can't just say it was colder than it was last year." We then had to
Yeah.
really dig deep to prove to him the figures.
Well, and this is one of the most important things in the IP MVP. You can talk about all the technical stuff and so forth, but the most important thing in the IP MVP is a procedural step,
Yeah.
which is to do a measurement and verification plan. And so a measurement and
From
verification
day
plan,
one. From day
yeah,
one. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
before. And
Yeah.
I tell you that the two things for me that an MMV plan does for you is the first thing is one of the reasons that people don't trust in the outcomes of energy saving projects is because you've got missing data and you're having to make some assumptions here and there. And
Yeah.
at that point, they're like, oh, you're just sort of
Yeah.
filling in the gaps. You're
Yeah.
you know massaging the figures to give us a certain
Yeah.
result. And so an M&V plan, if you start from the start, you get your baseline recorded. Um, I mean, a common example is, someone says, well, you've changed your set points down the line, and then no one's got a record of what the set points were in the baseline.
Yeah.
And so you can argue that until the cows come home,
Mm.
but you've got no data to be able to deal with that question.
Yeah.
So having an M&V plan, so setting your baseline, describing the conditions of it, and then making sure that you have all the metering, monitoring in place to make sure that you capture any changes, any data that you need to through the process, will make sure that you get rid of that problem as best possible. The other thing, and to your point of that boiler project, is that you need to take people along with you,
Yeah.
because if you try and if you don't sort of set out that principle to start with and how you're going to measure it, and then people do get skeptical at the end. They're saying, well, you're
Mm.
just giving me some arguments for why you haven't saved, or
Yeah. Yeah.
you've just given me some so you've cherry picked the figures to give me a good
And you've
result.
been creative, as you said before.
Yeah,
You've
but
manipulated.
exactly. But so by putting an M&V plan in place at the start, you get this sort of sense of immutability. You
Yeah.
can't change it. You've set out the baseline. You've set out the way that you're going to measure it. You've set out the way that you're going to account for whether it's a colder year or a warmer year by usually doing some regression analysis. So this
Yeah.
is building a model which adjusts your baseline according to how cold or warm it is in a year. And that, if you take people along, you describe what we mean by avoided energy or avoided cost, they're less likely to be skeptical of the results when you get to the end.
Yeah.
And so, uh, everyone gets very hung up on all of the technical complexities of the IPMVP, but I think it has one very simple message, which is you can um, build trust in these outcomes by doing the things in the right order, by putting an MVP plan in place.
One thing that sort of worries me, I'm an ESOS
Yeah,
lead assessor. So
yeah,
as an ESOS lead assessor, we have to put together expected savings and the opportunities. We don't really go into that too much detail on what you're saying here. We don't
yeah.
build the plan. We
No,
don't give them that verification plans as such. There's a massive gap between the two, isn't there? When I look at yourself and what you're doing
yeah,
regarding measurement and verification and what I've done and what I do,
yeah.
I feel as though I deliver the measurement and verification, prove my savings, but there's still that big gap between the two, isn't there? How do we close that gap?
Well, I mean that there shouldn't be a gap there because a lot of the stuff that you're doing in your ESOS assessments um, is half the job that we need to do in M&V, which is, collecting that baseline data, collecting the baseline conditions. And um, so it shouldn't be too much of a step to get to building an M&V plan, because a lot of that data has been collected through the good work that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I guess part of our mission at EEVS, if you will, has been over the last however long, 10, 14 years or whatever it is, has been to be that sort of center of excellence for M&V in the UK, and to offer training, share our skills and knowledge, so that uh, so that people can make that jump,
Mm.
because it doesn't have to be, a dark art. It should, the whole point of M&V is it should be transparent.
Yeah.
It should be so yeah, I really hope that we can close that gap by getting more skills into the sector. So yeah, we offer training, and I guess particularly in the public sector, because there's a lot of money being spent on the public sector decarbonisation scheme. We've been running a set of masterclasses, free masterclasses for public sector organisations to just get a crash course in M&V, and when you need to think about it, and just understanding the core principles. Because I think, yeah, maybe the reaction is a bit like that. Someone says, "Oh, it's the IPMVP." I don't have time to
No,
worry
no.
about what that is.
Yeah.
It sounds complicated. So I think we've got to break down that barrier and get better understanding in the sector. And we used to run these surveys called energy efficiency trends. You might have heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
We did them with Bloomberg for a while. And we actually measured people's reactions to. We asked a question: are you measuring your projects using good practice principles? And we had sort of yes and no and don't know. And what we started with is like maybe 60% of people said I don't know
Right.
back in 2012, and that gap closed over time, which
Mm-hmm.
was quite pleasing,
Yeah.
until there was still maybe 20% of people that didn't know. But yeah, it feels like there is better visibility in the sector now. Yeah.
And where did you think the likes of ESOS? ESOS is starting to make some step changes. So phase 1 and 2 was let's get the opportunities in. The client didn't
Yeah.
really have to do anything about them. Phase 3, we're now starting to see, well, what have you done so far? What are you going to do? And then obviously
Yeah.
the mesos is kicking in regarding how we're going to manage the opportunities going forward.
Mm.
Can you see phase 4 even dragging it further along and bringing it into measurement and verification going forward? Because we're getting more and more data now, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a real opportunity for the government, I would say. If I don't know to what extent with ESOS they can ask for your data,
Oh,
um,
significant. It's
but
getting more and more.
yeah, but I mean, they if those opportunities are being put in, and there's a requirement there for you to report back, and you do it properly, they could have a very powerful data set
Yeah.
of that could help people build trust in energy efficiency, and could help people understand where things work and where things don't work. Yeah, I really hope, and that I'll very happily take a call from anyone in the government looking at ESOS, that would like to talk about that opportunity, because I think it could be really helpful, but I'm somewhat biased, if you will.
You touched on the word challenges before, but more or less, I'm going to ask you directly, what do you think
Mm.
the challenges are regarding sort of the measurement and verification and what we're trying to deliver as energy managers going forward?
Yeah, well, I think the challenges are with measurement verification is that it, it is it is something where you have to there is some inherent uncertainty in measurement and verification, because you are having to make an estimate of what you would have used, and that comes with uncertainty. You can't predict things exactly, and I think that's probably one of the areas that there's a bit of a challenge. And I guess the other aspect is that the IPMVP, whilst it's a great thing and there's qualifications out there, there's no sort of institutionalized governance of it. So anyone basically can say that they are, you know, delivering you an IPMVP MOV plan unchecked.
Yeah.
And I think and to some extent, the Evo who own the IPMVP have acknowledged that, and in the latest versions they say, well, if you are, particularly in the case that you're getting your savings reported by your service provider, and I think this is one of the areas that you know that that there is that challenge in where you have a service provider reporting their own savings. They kind of have a bit of a vested interest in
Yeah.
reporting good performance because they've said to you, we can save you this, and they don't want to show that they haven't. And I mean, even if they are an honest broker, there's always that skepticism. We're
Yeah.
quite skeptical in this country sometimes that
Yeah.
you know even if they are being honest, someone will say, well, you should, are they massaging the figures? Is it that way? So
Yeah. Are they
so
being
so
creative?
yeah, and
Yeah.
so Evo has recognized that and said, well, in those circumstances, you really should try and employ a third-party verifier to check over the M&V plans, make sure that they're free
Mm.
from error, they're using the IPMVP properly, and check the savings reports as well. And again, I'm somewhat biased because that's the services that we offer, but
Yeah.
I think it really is helpful in building trust in these processes because you know the, I guess the sort of feedback that we get from people we're working with is that they want to be able to hang their hats on the results, but they don't want to be accused of greenwashing. So they've got to be really super certain
Yeah.
that. So when we talk to like Vodafone, Royal Mail, some of our customers, they want to put this in their reports and say, we've saved this energy, but they don't want the risk of someone coming back and saying, well,
And
you
challenging
know,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've and challenging it. So having that sort of layer in there, and I think on the other side of it, the people supplying the technologies and services, they want to build their credibility. They want to be they want to show that their services work,
Yeah.
and that they deliver what they say on the tin. So
And then what
um,
about the future? Are we seeing software packages coming along to help us do this with AI,
yeah.
or is there technology out there that's going to help us drive this forward long term?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you've definitely got platforms now that can, there's a range of energy management platforms out there that can collect the data, and help you analyze it. And I think, the most powerful thing in our area is having good quality data. And I
Yeah.
know that you've got that in a lot of your podcasts and so forth, but having access to half hourly data on the electricity and the gas side gives us the power to really
Yeah.
analyze um, consumption trends and to be able to build those models as accurately as possible. So um, yeah, I think there's a lot of that. But I guess at the same time, I would probably advise a bit of caution with the idea that it can all be done by a computer. And this is not just me trying
Yeah.
to
You're not being biased again, are you? Yeah.
well, it's not just me trying
No,
to,
I know what you're
yeah.
saying.
I think there's
You've
a
got to
lot
have
of,
intelligence
yeah,
around the computer, haven't you? You need
yeah,
someone driving it and someone reviewing that data. It's like with
exactly,
AI. AI is brilliant,
yeah,
but what you've put in, you need to make sure what you're getting back out is spot on. And that can
exactly,
only be done by the expert reviewing it, can't it?
exactly, and I think there is a lot of efficiency that can be made by using technology in the right way. taking all the sort of leg work out of stuff. But yeah, as you say, I think it still needs an amount of professional oversight to make it
Yeah.
useful. I should, yeah. Do you mind if I finish off on the Eve story slightly because
Yes,
I
you
sort of
can.
because
I
I sort
didn't
of
realize how intense this subject was going. I should have realized how intense this subject was going to be. But yes, please do.
Well, just to tail it off, because I think I've left EEVS at maybe 2014 when I joined, where it was an independent company, but as I say, it still had some links to Power Perfector at the time. Yeah, EEVS went through a sort of acquisition in 2015, but then in 2019, actually just 3 weeks before my first daughter Nora arrived, so it was all happening at the same time.
Can
So
imagine.
Hillary, who I've mentioned earlier, myself and our MD, Managing Director Ian Jeffries, we did a management buyout of the company,
Right.
and so we now finally completely own the thing independently, and we're sort of in control of our own destinies, which has been
Brilliant. That's
quite
really good.
exciting. And yeah, so if we zoom forward sort of 5 years, sort of bring us up to date now, we've got a team of three wonderful M&V analyst employees with us, and yeah, we're offering that training, advice, and M&V services. Either doing the reporting ourselves or providing sort of third party review. And I think what I was coming to when we were talking about some of the challenges is that we've sort of set ourselves up to do nothing else but that. We never do ESOS surveys. We
Right.
never recommend how you should save energy or how much it's going to save, because at that point we have a vested interest in proving our own performance. Because we've
Exactly.
said
Yeah,
that,
yeah. I like the
and
independence of that.
and so we've just said no, we're not going to do that. We are going to just be completely independent and provide that you know that industry service, if you will.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and yeah, it's been really exciting. Now we work with sort of several major corporate businesses, so Lloyds Bank, Royal Mail, Vodafone, so forth, and public sector bodies, as I was saying, and they're all sort of looking for some assurance that they're spending their money effectively. So I've just had a cleaner come to see if they can come and clean the room. Um, yeah, they want that assurance they're spending their money effectively, and they want to be able to hold their service providers to account
Yeah,
for
yeah.
their promises. And yeah, as I said, we also work with the energy services companies that want to build their credibility. So,
Hmm.
I guess if you're recommending or anyone's recommending, how much can be saved, and it sort of comes back to, and I guess I haven't fully articulated the reason that I love what I do. And it is because I think by measuring things and by adding that layer of independent verification, we can build trust in energy. Because if I had a penny for every time someone said energy efficiency or is the cheapest kilowatt hour you can, the cheapest kilowatt hour you can save is you can buy is the one that you save, or insert
Yeah.
uh, statement there. But you sort of come back to that idea. Why aren't people doing it if it is the best thing that we should be doing it? And it comes back to that idea that people don't trust
Yeah.
entirely in the outcomes. And also, what we can do by measuring things properly is that um we can get better information on what works and what doesn't, and it means that we can sort of raise up the products and services that work best to make sure that we have a thriving industry. So, I mean, the other thing, I don't know if you've come across it over your time, but I talk to energy managers and they say, well, I've been I've been called up by three or four different service suppliers today, all offering me 30% savings. If I if I can get all of that, then I'm done for the day, aren't I?
Yeah, yeah.
I've saved. So I think building that credibility in energy efficiency is really important as well. And
Yeah.
that's
And I
yeah,
do
and
like that building like and trust. That's a big
Yeah,
thing that I train people on
yeah,
my academy as such. When I'm teaching energy managers in the future, we you have to build the like and trust with the organization, with the people around you
yeah,
to maintain exactly what you're saying. It's important.
yeah. And yeah, M&V is a really it was, actually one of our colleagues, Max. He's one of our recent joiners, although he's been with us for probably almost 2 years now. He's actually a bit of an expert in trust. He did his master's research in trust in sustainable fisheries, and he's been teaching us about like the theoretical background to
Wow,
trust
that's
and
amazing.
how you lose trust and how you regain it. And there's so many checkpoints with M&V. It's about communication. So
Mm,
by doing good M&V, you build that sort of communication and reporting structure and build and one of the guiding principles of M&V is transparency, and transparency is another thing that helps you build trust. And so yeah, he's got a bit of a blog actually on LinkedIn where he sort of goes into that. So do check it out, Max Dixon on
I'll have
LinkedIn.
to. Well,
Yeah,
I'm big on LinkedIn. I'll have to
yeah,
go and find him.
yeah,
So, Nick, it's come to that time,
yeah.
um, and I hope you don't mind. Have we got any more years to cover on
No,
on these?
no, I just wanted to
Yeah, yeah,
finish
no,
finish the
I,
finish
I,
that. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
teasing you. So it's come
yeah,
to that time in the interview where I'm going to put you on the spot, and this is an amazing subject, and
Mm,
it's close to my heart, and I really think energy experts around us need to be understanding that it's not just about making the savings; it's about proving the
yeah,
savings, and
yeah.
as you say, building like a trust around them savings as well, and them understanding those figures. So, is there anything you can give back to our industry as a takeaway?
Yeah, I think I'd sort of go back to what I was saying there before, which is that your most powerful tool in building trust in reported outcomes is an M&V plan, a measurement and verification plan, making sure that you think about how you're going to measure a project before you start it. And so, yeah, I think that's a really important part of the process. And so say you are doing your ESOS surveys or your audits and so forth, or if you're designing a project, that should be part of that proposal.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it'll bring a lot of value to the service that you're able to offer, or to the consultancy that you're able to offer.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that would probably be my key takeaway. And also I think um, don't don't um don't think that the IP MVP is all smoke and mirrors and all too complicated. I think with a little bit of time just to understand the basics, it is all very common sense stuff.
Yeah,
So don't be afraid of it. I'd say, and do take a bit of time to just have a little look at it, and it's good stuff.
brilliant.
Um,
How do
I don't know if
we?
does that
How?
qualify as a takeaway or?
Yes, indeed. How do we also? What's the best way for us to learn more about this? Have you got any websites you can point us into
Yeah,
direction
well,
of?
am I allowed to do a bit of a plug
Yeah, of
or
course you can. This is the whole.
um
You've
for
got.
an
There's
event?
a spotlight on you now.
Well, so actually, one really good opportunity is that we have recently, I think you've interviewed Vilnius Vesma actually
Yes.
in some of you. So he used to run this thing called MavCon, which is the Measurement and Verification Conference, and he's entrusted us with taking it forward. He's starting to
Wow.
uh,
Yeah, yeah.
hand over some stuff these days. So um, that is going to be on the 23rd of October, and I think there's some early bird tickets out now. It's going to be in Birmingham, back in face to face. So it's always a really good opportunity to come and, you know, if you are already in the space, develop your understanding further. But also, if you're sort of interested in it, come and be part of the conversation. So I think that's a really good opportunity. As I said as well, if you're in the public sector, we have these free master classes that we run, and I think the next one's on the 17th of May. Just an hour crash course in in M&V, and how you can apply it to decarbonisation projects. So do come along for those. And also we run we run training. So we've got various different things that we do. We do quite a popular 2-day course. So it's a practical M&V course, which it starts you off in the grounding. So we do the Evo level 2 syllabus in the first morning. You get a certificate of attendance for that.
Yeah.
But then we really work on the practicalities from our own experience. We bring some case studies and we say, well, how do you build an M&V plan? Well, how do you critique an M&V plan? And then we get under the bonnet. We do the engine underneath. How do we do the maths behind M&V? How do we build baseline models? How do we assess accuracy? And my colleague Hilary as well does the certification training through ESTA, so the PMVA and PMVE qualifications. So those are good places. I'd say come to our website. We've got some resources on IPM BPM. Even better when we launch a new website soon. But also just go to the EVO website, so the Efficiency Evaluation Organization. You can download IPMVP for free. You can read through the document; it's all there. And I think you just have to enter your details as you do in any place. So that's a very good resource as well.
Brilliant. Well, Nick, it's been a real pleasure, and I'm really glad we caught up with each other. And I'm really interested to take this to the next level, and there's going to be some stuff we're going to need to chat about offline as well. So thank you very much for your time. It's been brilliant. I can't believe how many minutes we've been speaking for, but I can really, because this subject is a very big subject that we need to get our heads around.
Well, you wind me up, and then off I go. So I feel a bit bad actually. When I was talking about the years, I was thinking of John Mulholland or something. He's been in the industry for probably twice as long as I have, if not more. So me taking my time over my 14 years. I know 17 years. 17
You've done well.
years.
That's still a significant amount of years. Exactly. So thank you, Nick. I'd like to say you and your family stay safe in these times.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Paul. It's been a real honor. And
thank you.
Yeah, keep on doing the good work.
Thanks very much.
Bye.